And
And
you and I will be actually. Let me show you now. I'm going to share my
are you going to do this
screen.
for every episode that you do?
No, no, I was doing just the recorded ones, and initially that was the case. So what I decided to do though was to go live. Just Gabe Leal was telling me like, "Oh man, going live is the best," and I tried it with him, and it was like, "This is actually pretty good."
I got to do that.
So this is so are you seeing it there? Are
Yeah,
you
I see
see
it.
okay.
Mhm.
So this is basically how we'll be set up. It'll be you and I on a corner here on the side. And
So, for anyone who doesn't know, this is
so are you
Emily
able to hear
Harmon.
it?
She is the founder of
Yes.
Emily Harmon
Okay.
Coaching LLC,
Right, awesome.
which, by the way, I thought was a great name. A great name.
So
So
it's always so
this
weird
is
seeing yourself.
are you seeing it there?
Yeah,
Are you
I see
see
it.
okay.
Mhm.
So this is basically how we'll be set up.
Now, the
Uh,
only thing that's different
um,
is
corner here on the
you and I
side.
will be muted.
And so, for anyone who doesn't know, this is. So, are you able to hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it, and I've also got it on.
Yeah.
I've pulled
Emily
up your
Harmon Coaching
Facebook so I
LLC,
can
which by the
somehow
way, I
start a
thought was
watch
great
party.
name. A great name. So
It's always so weird
So
seeing
are
yourself.
you seeing it there?
Yeah,
Are you
I see
seeing
it.
okay. So this is basically how we'll be set up.
Now, the only thing that's different is
Corner here on the
you and I
side.
will be muted.
And so, for anyone who doesn't know,
I can't hear you now. Are you muted?
Yeah, so
Okay.
with the share screen, when I throw in the share screen, I have to mute us because otherwise it'll feed them us talking and it'll feed them the video. So we'll basically be on the comments, and if
All right.
anyone has a comment, let me just make sure you can see it there
And when
also.
you're done playing the video, we might go live or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Basically, the video is about 50 minutes, 48, 49 minutes. So if people have comments or ask questions during the meeting, during the video, we can actually answer them. Um, are you seeing the comment section on the side?
Yes.
All right. So I just plugged in hello there, and basically we can add in comments, that sort of thing. Um,
We can do a private chat and we can do comments. I see here
right.
hello there. And then
Yep.
for some people, it may not show up who it is because they have to like register their name with StreamYard through Facebook. So it'll just say like Facebook user. You won't know who it is asking the question.
Yep. Not a problem. Not a problem. So just as long as we can keep the engagement going, like that's
Yeah.
the main thing. Um, Let me just double check. I think that's pretty much it. Um, we should be good and live on both mediums. All right, and Emily Harmon. All right, got you there. All right. So, in a couple of minutes, we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
I'm gonna play our little nifty intro, and so because of the fact that it went from basically just doing a recorded video to going live, you're actually the first person who I'm actually going live with, and because well you get the honor,
That's
and
fine.
but it does make it a little bit different because instead of us discussing everything uh right here and then having people react to it, they'll be able to react to what we've already discussed, which should leave us free to really respond or answer questions or tackle some of these great comments that we'll get.
Okay. All right. You're live now, right?
Yep. Yes, we are.
On Facebook. We are. Okay. Because I'm
Yep.
looking, I don't know how to share, how to start a watch party. I don't know,
So
but it's okay. I posted it in my Facebook group so people can watch it.
yeah, so as far as the Facebook watch party, um
I've done it
darn,
before. I just don't see it as an option right now, which I don't know
okay,
why, but it's okay.
darn, okay.
We're not friends, right? You're publishing this. See, I see like and comment, but I don't see share. So I wonder if
Gotcha.
this is private just for you, if you have to make it public. You know how you go to that little those three dots
Yep.
And you can make it public.
So let's see.
Is it public?
Gotcha. So yeah, so I'm seeing that. Let's see. So let's. This is awesome.
It's fun to
This is where I
learn
like the.
technology.
Um.
And if you can't, don't worry about it, but you may want to make it public.
No, definitely. That was
Mhm.
the whole point. The whole happy point. All right. So it is telling me it's live. Are you able to share the link it, with your group?
See, it only says like and comment because I think that you have your Facebook privacy settings. So you can go to these top 3 dots where you're going to edit that post,
Gotcha.
and then you should be able to change your privacy setting on there.
Gotcha. And of course, this is the great thing to be doing right now. And alrighty. So
But I'm not friends with you, so I don't think we're not Facebook friends. I don't think.
no, I don't think so, but I
I'm
am
still your
definitely.
friend, but you know. Um,
Yeah.
so I can see it. So that's weird that I can see it, but I can't.
Yeah. So
It's okay.
the but that's why I thought that the the link that I sent you, you'd be able to just post to your group and then they would
I
all
did.
be able to see.
I did. So they should be able to see it.
Okay, okay. So I
I
guess
did
for
post it in
future,
my group. Mm-hmm.
gotcha. Okay, so for the future, I'll make sure that I have it public and I've tried it out that way because I know I can see it, but that's as far as I got.
But I can see it too, and I'm not a friend of yours on Facebook,
Right, right.
although we
Okay,
are friends.
that's right. That's right.
I was,
And I'll make sure. I literally just got my Facebook page on like Saturday. That so okay. So let's go ahead and get this started.
oh
I
wait, I
don't.
see that you also just asked to join the onward movement.
Yes, yes. That was just now.
I will approve you.
Aw, boom. Get that. We're getting things done.
All
Alrighty, so
right.
let's see. And you said you already posted the link in there, right?
I
So,
did post the link in the onward movement.
all right, perfect.
So
All right,
people are
awesome.
watching it. If not, they can watch the replay or whatever. So
Yep, yep. Alrighty, so we are good to go here. And let us start off with our quick video with our intro.
Have you ever wondered why you struggle to find success or fulfillment or lasting happiness? It's probably because your default wiring is set to lose. The How to Win at Everything podcast looks at real people who have struggled with the same insecurities, fears, doubts, and expectations and found a way to succeed. Why? Their brains are rewired for success. We dive into their thought patterns to show you how to rewire your own brain to win at everything.
All right, that is my intro, which I took like 2 hours to work on. So super
Kelly,
happy
I
about
mean,
that.
that is a really, really good intro. That's so
You
much
know,
better than mine. I don't have a video intro or anything like that. I got to get my act together.
yeah, well, this is because of you. You motivated me because we had such a good conversation. I was like, let's really do it up. That's why we had a whole trailer and everything. So I feel I feel like you've helped me to become a better me.
Oh,
So it's 7:04. So I'll go ahead and get this started. And we're going to share this. If you run into any issues hearing it or anything, you let me know. Otherwise, here we go. No brainer to beg and plead for you to get on here with me and to really talk. So, for anyone who doesn't know, this is Emily Harmon. She is the founder of Emily Harmon Coaching LLC.
what happened to the sign? Figure out how to do business with the Canadian Marine Corps, and I oversaw that program, and we would give advice to new leadership as to how we could create
Wow.
more opportunities.
Wow.
So it was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And these are all the contracts, they're all by bid, right?
Right. Most of them are
Most of them.
competitively bid.
Okay.
But there are some times where we are allowed to go sole source
Mhm.
directly to a company if there's different regulations and laws that allow you to
For
do
different
that
stuff.
based on
Yeah.
the kind of company. Like if it's a company owned by a service disabled veteran owned small business, in some
Mhm.
cases you're allowed to go just directly to that
Sure.
company.
Makes
So
sense.
it just depends on what you're buying and and a lot of other things. It's
Gotcha.
not straightforward. It's kind of
Yeah.
complex. That's why you
Imagine a
need
lot of
people
legalese
to
in that.
help out.
Yeah. Okay. So you also spend time being a role model, being a mentor. Um, I know that you were doing mentoring with veterani.
Right.
What what exactly is that?
I still do that. Veterati is I think it's set up by USAA,
Hmm.
and it's a organization that there's a website, and I can go in and put my name in the website saying that I am available to mentor
Hmm.
veterans or veteran spouses, and it's
Hmm.
free. So I set aside about 4 hours a month is what I do, and
Hmm.
people can sign up for appointments to meet with me. I just had two meetings today.
Hmm.
It's usually people that are transitioning from
Sure.
the military to the civilian workforce, and to
Hmm.
they're a little concerned about the transition, not sure where they might want to make their next career. So just
Hmm.
help them guide them through that. And then sometimes military spouses, it's challenging for a military spouse to find a job or to
Sure.
get a business started because they're moving so
Hmm.
often.
Hmm.
So we just give back. It's a free counseling service or mentoring service for those veterans and their spouses.
It's interesting. We talk a lot of times about leadership and about um, where how to be a leader and that sort of thing. It's beautiful to kind of see you're taking time, especially with it being a free program. You're taking time to actually give back, and it's one of those things where it's you walking the walk. Which I just personally appreciate. I hear a lot of people, especially when you get into the social media and the millions of people who say that they are coaches and mentors and that sort of thing. it's more than just a business opportunity, I think, for you, and that kind of shines through with that sort of behavior. All right, but see, we're only like just over halfway through your list here, so whew, so let's go on now. Obviously, you're founder, CEO of Emily Harmon Coaching. What exactly do you do at Emily Harmon Coaching LLC?
What I do a couple different things. I coach small businesses, small
Hmm.
business owners, or people within small businesses. Sometimes people call it consulting too. There's a difference between coaching and consulting. I
Hmm.
prefer the coaching over the consulting.
Hmm.
And I help them with figuring out how to do business with the Department of Defense,
Hmm.
with the federal government. But because I spent all my time in the Department of Defense, Department of
Hmm.
Navy, that's where I help the most, and because it can be really daunting. So I help them figure out, like, sometimes companies are afraid to even make a call to somebody in the
Yeah.
government, or don't know
Yeah.
how to figure out who buys what they sell. And I really like to help the companies by teaching them their employees how to do this stuff
Yeah.
instead of me doing it for them,
Definitely.
because they just really learn. So right now I'm helping a particular company that just became a hub zone, a small business that's located in a historically underutilized small business or
Hmm.
business zone area.
Hmm.
They're in the Philadelphia area. And
Gotcha.
so they're trying to take advantage of that new small business
Yeah.
status
Designation.
as a
Yeah.
hub zone. And I'm helping them with how to approach the government on that. For example, you don't want to call the government and say, we're a hub zone small business. How could, give us some contracts, and not that they were doing that, but you should lead with that you're a hub zone small, you should lead with the kinds of things that your hub zone small business does and how you can solve the government's
Right.
problems or the
Right.
potential customers' problems. And then mention that you're hub zone later on.
Hmm.
And that makes people realize, oh, they're hub zone, then there's certain ways I can get to
Yep.
them a little easier.
Yep.
But first, you
Yep.
have to make them want to get to you. And you have to
Makes
make it
sense.
easy for them to understand what you do and how you can help solve some of their problems. So I just help them on that so that in the next they can apply that to any other customer that they try to approach. I'm helping them with Navy now, but they want to get into Army, Air Force. It's the
Hmm.
same thing.
All right. Now you said there were a couple things you did. So what was the
Yeah,
other
that's one thing. The other thing that I do is coaching. I like to coach individuals. They don't have to be small businesses. And um, two other things that I do are the podcast, and I host a podcast, and I started the Onward Movement. So I'll kind of explain how it all comes together to
one?
coaching. And it's not that I saw this right away, but when I retired last May, I decided to start publishing the Onward podcast. And I actually
Hmm.
published 7 episodes of that new podcast the day after I retired, because they tell you should publish three, when you first start writing,
Yeah.
like an overachiever. So I published 7, but I really wanted to give the potential audience an idea of the variety of things
Sure.
that I can
Yeah.
cover on that podcast, because it's authentic conversations on facing adversity and moving forward. So in the first few episodes, one was me. It was my son interviewing me because, I know you're hosting this podcast, Kelly, but if you ever have to do a solo cast where you're just talking into the microphone, it's like about
It is
yourself.
very weird.
Yeah. So I couldn't do it. So I decided to ask my son to interview me. So
Hmm.
it's just kind of a discussion with my son. So that's kind of cool. And then I interviewed a retired Navy captain who
Hmm.
was also a senior executive. I interviewed him on his depression. And
Nice. Yeah.
I think I'm thinking back to my first few episodes. I interviewed one of my classmates from the Naval Academy who's
Hmm.
a lesbian, and how she was able to serve in the military that way, and how she got to the point where she was standing beside President Barack Obama when he
Mm.
repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Gotcha.
I
Gotcha.
interviewed another of my classmates who's transgender. So it's just, I interviewed so many different people. And that's one thing. So for the first year of my retirement, I published an episode every Monday, and
Hmm.
sometimes one on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, but just a lot of content on how different people have faced adversity and moved
Yep.
forward. And and then I started the Onward Movement. Um, and the Onward Movement is something bigger than the Onward podcast. My goal
Sure.
is to create a community of people that really are maybe feeling like they're struggling to achieve their goals because they're not their authentic selves.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they fear judgment. So I want to help them release the fear of judgment and be more authentic. And this onward movement right now is a Facebook group. That's our
Hmm.
community. Um, but it really is a community. It's not just likes and yeah, I like that post and like that post. It's really, we have Zoom calls. We're really getting to know each other. I see friendships being built in there. And we're learning how to be more authentic. And then eventually, starting soon, I'm going to be, I'll show you a little picture here. I've got this roadmap
That's
that
right.
I developed, which includes the E, which is the logo of my company.
Hmm.
And it's a roadmap that I'm going to, as a coach, I'll take the people in the onward movement on, and they can either hire me to go in deep on these things, or we
Hmm.
can just do top level in the onward movement group. So people
Right.
can be in the group and just participate in that roadmap, or they can go deeper with coaching. But it's divided into 4 phases to help become more authentic. It's the explore phase, the clarity phase, the compassion phase, and then the community phase. And at the end, they reach the end, they can get they'll get the onwarder award. And in
Right.
order to get that award, they have to share what they learned on this journey, um, either going live in Facebook in the onward movement or by being on my podcast.
Oof.
And so for some people, it's like, oh, here's
Yeah.
my next. So it's like helping them. And in
Yeah.
the explore phase, we're exploring like what caused us to be less authentic.
Hmm.
I'm not doing this because I'm perfect and know all the answers. I'm learning too. I'm
Hmm.
going through my own journey of learning. What caused me to be who I am today, and who do I
Yep.
really want to be? And we're always growing. And we have a manifesto too, which I think I sent to you. And
Yep.
some of our statements in this is a picture of the manifesto. Some of our statements in the manifesto are like, we have three values: authenticity, continuous learning, and engagement
Hmm.
both in and outside of the onward movement community, like in our
Right.
communities. And like one of our statements in the manifesto is that although we strive to improve ourselves, we know we're enough just the way we
Hmm.
are. Another one is we create space for others. We hear you. We're not alone. We're connected. Another one is we don't need to fit in. We stand out. And authenticity. I think this is really timely with engagement. COVID virus, a lot of
Yep.
people working from home,
Yep.
you see a little bit more authenticity. You see people
Yeah.
being their real selves, sitting at home in their
Yep.
messy
Yep.
study,
Yeah.
doing it, on a Zoom call. But then also with the whole, um, the murder of George Floyd and
Yeah.
the silent protests and the not so silent protests that are
Right.
going on. We say we create space for others. We hear you. We're not alone. We're connected. And not everyone in the onward movement has the same opinions
Sure.
on
Yeah.
what's going on. Not everyone agrees. We're
Sure.
not all of the same mind. And so one of the things that we're really doing is making sure that we are creating that space for
The
people to
space.
be
Yeah.
heard, because it's not like we're only going to create space for others and that are in the onward movement and think the way we think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really a trying time to be authentic and to speak
Yeah.
your truth and to stand by it. And I've had, since you and I talked, I've had a lot of
Hmm.
people really, one person said, a Naval Academy grad said, I'm not in my class, but you're my enemy
Wow.
and we have to fight
Wow.
because we don't see eye to eye. Another person posted, you ought to go to Africa and work on the racism and slave issue there because they still have slaves. I said, I appreciate your advice, but I'm going to work on issues in my own country.
Sure.
I'm not going to go to Africa and do it. We have issues in our own country that we
Got
need to
enough.
deal with.
Got a lot to work with.
Yeah. So
So, well,
anyway,
here. Let me pause you, Emily, because one of the great things about you being who you are is your enthusiasm and your passion, and you probably answered like 9 of the questions I was going to ask you already.
yeah,
So I want to back up just a little bit, and you kind of got into this a little bit, but I want to have you kind of give the audience an idea of what spurred this on. Like, why are you? What makes you want to be this person?
like what you said about want to be this person, because I'm not quite the person that I want to be yet.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, I think that what happened with me is I'm working through this because when I interview people on the Onward podcast, one of the themes that comes through is everyone got help,
Right.
and I realized I needed to get some coaching. I needed to get some help to work through some of my issues, and so I finally started coaching, and I'm working through some things. So I'm starting to learn a little bit more about like who I am, who's Emily. And when I look back at my life, I see that I grew up with really pretty strict parents. They weren't in the military, but they saw my athletic potential. And I went from hiding behind the defense when I was in third grade playing basketball to being the leading scorer in Maryland, DC, and Virginia when I was a senior in high school. And one of the ways that I did that was, jumping rope. I had to jump rope every morning for 10 minutes before I got breakfast. I had to.
And this is your parents having you do
My
this?
parents. That's kind of how, I grew up. And I think I became a pleaser, a people pleaser. Like, please my parents, I'll jump rope. And I'm not blaming my parents. I'm saying what I did. So, and then I could have scored like 50 points in a basketball game. My dad would say, good game. Now, you remember that one time when you went right, you should have gone left. So it was like constructive criticism. So I think I'm pretty good there's a lot of good things that came out of that. Like, I'm pretty good at taking constructive criticism. But also I'm a people pleaser. And then I went to the Naval Academy right out of high school.
Yeah.
And that's a strict environment too. And I never really took the time to explore who I was, because pretty much after I graduated from the Naval Academy, I got married. And then so I've been married 3 times, and one time I was a single parent. And when you're like that, you're like face down, just trying to get through life, not able to really look up and say, well, who am I? I had to focus on raising my 2 kids. I had, I had a job that I had to keep going. I was in an verbally abusive relationship. So I've just been through a lot. And then what happens is in 2014, a friend of mine said, Emily, let's go to the World Domination Summit. And I'm like, World Domination Summit? What's that? But it was in Portland, Oregon. And I had watched this TV show called Portlandia, which was all about how Portland's weird. And I want to go there.
I've seen that, yeah.
I want to go there and see if Portland's really that weird. And it is. I love Portland. I love Portland. And so then the World Domination Summit is all about community service, giving back. It was a bunch of people that were so different than the people I had been around in the military my whole life. Not that that was bad, but I felt like these are my people. These are people that, are bloggers, couch servers, podcasters. So I just felt like these are my people. And that was 5 years before I retired. So I kept going back to the World Domination Summit. And I think that was the beginning of me figuring out who I am. And during that time, my son became sober, so I didn't have to worry about him as much. My daughter, is on her own now. So I'm able to focus on me. So I'm still learning who I am. So part of it's timing, but part of it's just like, I think that conference was a turning point for me.
Let me ask you, when it sounds like you had all of this structure from pretty much as a little girl on, did you something like that where you have so many different ideas, so many people who were kind of making their own way? Was it just a case that was freeing for you? Do you think that's what kind of opened it up for you to find your own way?
Maybe. I'm still kind of figuring it out, because one of the things that I have a hard time doing is being still. And so what I like is my counselor. I just started with her like twice. I've met with her, but she's teaching me to do like these breathing exercises and yoga, some yoga moves and stuff.
Sure.
Which is because I told her I can't just sit and meditate, because it's like I'm not accomplishing anything. I have to go. I have to be a doer. And she's helping me be just being. And not doing. That's really hard for me.
Yeah.
That's really hard for me. Like yesterday was Sunday, right? I did a podcast interview at noon. At 2:00, I had a phone call about Black Lives Matter with someone from the class of '88 from the Naval
Hmm.
Academy. At 4 o'clock, I had a phone call with some people from the class of '85. And then at 7 o'clock, I led a book discussion on white fragility. That was my
Hmm.
Sunday.
Hmm.
I don't want to be like that. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm still working on me.
I think that's a really interesting thing. I know so many people who are. Uh, I remember reading something you wrote, and you mentioned about how you have a hard time being still because it feels like you're not being productive. Now, as a veteran of therapy, because I've been quite a bit. One of the things that my therapist mentioned, she actually asked me, so growing up with your parents, how was that relationship? And is it the case that you received, was the love unconditional, or was it a case that there's always something you got to do? There's something you need to be getting done. And to this day, I have such a, like, my wife is like, you got to relax, you got to sit down. And I am right there with you. There is, in my mind, there is always something else I can be doing. Like if I'm taking a shower, I'm listening to an audiobook, you know, because
Yeah.
there should be, but and it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because from this seat looking at you, you're an overachiever already, you know, and then to have you as an overachiever basically saying, man, I need to achieve. So it's an interesting dynamic, and
Yeah.
obviously it's a journey. So
It's a
as it
journey.
goes on. Yeah.
My counselor told me today, she's like, only do these poses for 30 seconds at a time and don't do any more than what I'm telling you to do. I'm like, how many times do you have to tell your clients not to do something?
Yeah, yeah, seriously. It's always the other way around. Like, could you please do, please, the thing we discussed that you agreed on? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think
Uh,
that's why I'm doing this. I'm learning me, but I also feel like I have a lot to give back
yeah.
and I can help a lot of people through stuff too.
It's also interesting because obviously there's a lot to be learned in teaching other people. And it's funny because I see so much of my own insecurity, my own fragility in talking to you, because as you're mentioning these things, there's always a thing to do. There's always a service to other people, and sometimes I'm thinking like, wait a minute, am I like, why am I doing this? So getting to a point where you're figuring out your why, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it makes. So let me ask you this: how do you know if you won? At like last day, Emily's on her deathbed. How do you know? How do you feel fulfilled? How do you know that you did it?
That's a really good question. I know that I did it because I can enjoy the journey and not just try to get to the destination and check it
Hmm.
off my to-do list.
Hmm.
I can cook myself a meal instead of just throwing together a quick salad just so I can fuel myself
Yeah, yeah,
and eat while I'm reading emails on my
yeah,
phone.
yeah,
I can take a day off. Like I retired over a year ago, right? And like right after I retired, my kid's dad died. My former husband died like a
yeah,
month after I retired. So we
mm,
spent like 6 months taking care of him, and then I'm executive.
yeah.
So the whole first year of retirement hasn't been relaxing. So I'm just finally getting to the point where I can work on me.
Hmm.
And actually, another way I'll know is like I know that this counselor is going to uncover stuff, help me uncover stuff.
Sure.
Because today she said, you've got to do these exercises, it's like 15-20 minutes a day of what she's
Hmm.
teaching you to do
Hmm.
for 40 days, and you're going to see a huge difference. I've already done it for 4 and I've seen a huge difference, but then she said you're going to start to find out who you are, and to other feelings are going to come up. And she said,
Yeah,
and I started to get tears in my eyes, like that was
yeah.
scary to me. It's like she said you're going to learn how to care for yourself as much as
Ooh,
you care for others.
that's a tough one, right?
And I was like, whoa, I've never cared for myself. It's always been other people. And so it's scary to me, but I know there's gonna be
Yeah,
interview me in a year, and
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see how it is, what I'm
I,
like.
I love the idea of this journey. Now, one of the things that I know that I've personally recognized in people is that there are traumatic things that happen. There are people who suffer, and even by no fault of their own. People who grow up and they suffer and they have these bad situations, and these people, that idea of the bully becoming the bully, and there's obviously a lot of there's a lot of pressure in our world to be selfish, to be self-centered, to kind of, if there's a situation where you feel powerless, typically people are like, let me grab power. And it seems like you're on the other end of that, where you're like, hey, I've had some situations that have been tough for me. Let me let me give instead, which I gotta tell you is pretty darn unique.
I don't know why
Honest,
I'm that way, but
because that's surely what I was going to ask. Why do you think that's how you are versus, you know?
um, one thing that was really eye-opening to me is when my son started doing drugs. Like he was 13, and he
Oh yeah,
became
wow.
sober when he was 23. And I remember one day, I don't know how old he was, maybe like 16, maybe 17 or 18. And
Yeah.
someone knocked at the door. He was 18. Someone knocked at the door and said, "Is your son there?" And she and I are friends now, but she was
Hmm.
looking for a deadbeat mom because her
Yeah.
son was passed out, and she couldn't wake him up. She didn't
Wow.
know what's going on. So my son's like, "Well, doesn't your husband take Ambien?" I think he took some of your husband's Ambien,
Oh,
And so then
yeah.
we're like, the parents, the parents started to get together, and we started holding these meetings
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
a week. We call them Parents of Teens Unite. We called it Pot U. And I tell my kids, I'm going to the pot meeting.
Like
And
I've
be
been
like,
there. Been there.
if you guys are going to, talk, we're going to talk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that helped me because I probably at some point would have been the mom that thought, like that kid's doing drugs, what a terrible parent.
Right.
And I
Right.
wasn't a terrible parent. Yeah, we did have a broken family.
Yeah.
We and his dad was an alcoholic
Yeah.
and abusive, verbally abusive. But I always told Will, I'm like, the gene runs in your family. My grandfather's an alcoholic. Your dad's dad,
Sure. Yeah.
And so Will now will tell me, I know you told me not to do it, but anyway,
Yeah.
I think that part that really helped me be more understanding of like all these parents whose kids are dying or have died. I've interviewed a few of them. I know a
Oh.
lot of parents whose kids have died of heroin
Yeah.
overdose. My son
Oh.
never did heroin, but these are not bad parents. These
Yeah.
are like straight A students that, have an injury and then get
Yep.
hurt.
Yep.
So it's just, I guess I just see that the good side in people.
Hmm.
And
Now,
I just want to help. I don't know.
if we could just manufacture that somehow, and instead of what we seem to get with people who are like, yeah, there's a problem, let me take advantage, let me get mine.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so okay, so obviously we've explored a lot of Emily, which I think is fascinating. When we talked last week, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to ask her a million more questions. Anybody who knows me, like that's my thing. I'm so curious about perspective and about life. And I think you have such a great perspective. Again, very unique in the sense that there are so many people who are really looking to gain. So I love that about you. I think that is awesome. But I'm going to take
Well,
a
that's
left
what
turn.
makes you a good podcast host too, is that you're curious and you ask
Yeah,
good
yeah.
questions.
Oh man, you say a good podcast host. I say a nerd. I say a nerd, and my wife thinks that everybody's a science experiment for me because it's like, oh my god, I need to understand how you view the world and how it's led up to. So, let's call it my God-given gift that I am curious. Let's call it that.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a left turn here, and I want to try to get more of your perspective. So, um, you're coaching, right? You're showing people how to be better versions of themselves. Um, how do you? Well, first off, personally, how do you define success? How do you define, on a day-to-day basis? How do you know that you're doing a good job?
Um,
Sorry, I
I
had to break out all the big guns for you.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking I have, and I was thinking, did you give me that answer in writing? I don't remember what I answered. I might be giving you a different answer, but I think,
Sure.
yeah, one of the ways I define success is Well, I do have goals, and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
and I track if I'm, achieving my goals. Um, I think a successful person needs to be able to take a look at themselves and be honest. So I think,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, I kind of just rethink through the day and
Hmm.
evaluate how I did. And some days are better than others. Some days I'm
Sure.
better at time management than others. You know, like Sunday, I wasn't that great. I put too much work on myself, but today I
Sure.
took a nice walk at the park. So I think overall I'm balanced. So I think
Okay.
having a good balance is successful.
Hmm.
This may seem weird, but I color code my calendar, and that's a way for me to. I live by my calendar, and
That's
that's a
right. You
way for
got
me
to.
to see if I'm balanced. Like
Yep.
orange is exercise, yellow is phone calls, blue is my business,
Nice.
red is podcast stuff. So I can kind of glance and then see if there's any free time. Like I
Hmm.
usually block off time, and that's
Yeah. Yeah.
gray, and make So I try to make sure, and I think that's somebody who's successful is making sure that you're not too far one way. And over the week it might be, like making
Hmm.
sure you're
Hmm.
not just working way too much. So that's one thing. Having good relationships with my family, friends, and
Hmm.
kids
Hmm.
is another one. I'm really close to my two children, and
Yeah.
I'm very happy about that. I live right
Yeah.
near my parents, so I'm able to hang out with them. And I might have said, some things about how they brought me up, but look, my kids can say something about me.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
I take all the responsibility for my actions about
Hmm.
that. And I think my parents did a lot of great things. If they hadn't had me jump rope in the morning, then maybe I wouldn't have been a good basketball player. Then maybe I
Right.
wouldn't have got into a good
Yep.
college. I
Yep.
mean,
Man, again, perspectives are so interesting to me because I know people who, if you ask them, um, why, why did you run out in the street and get hit by that car? And the first thing they'll tell you is what somebody else did. It's like,
yeah.
but you didn't have to run. You didn't have to. You could have looked both ways. I mean, that is a thing. So to hear you uh, take that responsibility, and let me just combine this with your last part of the answer about success being about balance. It is a very interesting thing. This is like stuff that's right in my wheelhouse because I love the idea of one, we we don't have any control over what other people do. And you know that with your family, people who you want to say they have an inherent sort of responsibility to be a part of your world. So don't screw me over. But nope, can't control it at all. In the same way, I think there's when listening to you talk about the idea of one, balance being about success, success being about balance, and two, the idea of well, actually also about the order. It's inspiring in a sense, but it also kind of takes me back to the idea of my own responsibilities. When I think about my parents, I think about the idea that if obviously everyone's parents screwed them up and blah blah blah, but I think if you were to make my parents perfect people and just give them a blank slate and say, hey, with no issues, with no abuse, with no any of the stuff you went through, would you want to be a great person? Would you want to be the best parent? And I think almost all of them would say yes.
Yeah,
And
everyone's trying. Yeah.
yeah, so on that basis, I have to forgive them. I have to let it go, and I also think about the fact that I was probably a little bastard. Like man, I know that they have to be. Like, I've probably taken about 15 years off their lives just with the stupid stuff I've done. So I think it's a great sort of perspective. And again, that's another one of those places where you and I just really meet up because it is a lot about how you feel about you and that locus of control. Uh,
Well,
I'm gonna.
let me tell you
Oh,
something.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I told you my kid's dad was verbally abusive, right?
Hmm.
I put up with it for like I'm here. I'm a Naval Academy grad. No one,
Hmm.
tough at work. No one would
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
know that I was putting up with that abuse at home,
Hmm.
and I put up with it for 8 years,
Mm.
until I finally left. And I did everything I could to fix myself. Like
Yeah.
he'd say, it was, if you hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have had
Yeah.
to yell at you.
Yep.
And so I'd go to counseling. I did all this stuff, and I
Mm.
and I had to learn myself that abuse is just like somebody who hits you. Someone hits you, and then
Yeah.
things start to get better because the tension's gone, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, maybe they've changed. Things are better, and
Yeah.
then the tension builds up, and they hit you. And I remember going to counseling because I had to meet with a counselor because as part of the when I was getting ready to leave him, I ended up leaving, and I had to do some things to line it up to make sure I was able to keep the kids. I had to show
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I went to the counselor, and then my dad came, and I was crying. My dad was crying, and I was saying how nasty my husband was to me, and I was getting up
Hmm.
ready to leave. And he goes, "Well, when's our next appointment?" I'm like, What do you mean? When's our next appointment? He's the one that was mean to me.
Sure.
He goes, "You got to figure out why you put up with that for
Yeah.
years."
Yeah.
And it still has taken me, you know, a while to, initially my podcast was going to be, well, I started blogging about divorce, and
Yeah.
I guess I wrote a lot about how he treated me,
Hmm.
and I guess I interviewed somebody, and I started learning from other people that I was interviewing
Yeah.
about the responsibility I could take, because
Hmm.
I had responsibility in that because I put up with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I'm learning. You're always growing.
Yeah. Let me ask you, is this the same husband that died right after? Oh
That
boy,
died
that
right after I retired. So he was my kid's
uh
dad. We divorced when my son was 7 and my daughter was 4.5. That was in 2000. And
yeah.
then I retired, and he got sick with cancer. And the whole 6 months that he was sick, he was the nicest person ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
And you took care of him, right?
I helped take care of him. He
Yeah.
had a fiance, but like within 2 weeks of being diagnosed with cancer, he was paralyzed in both of his arms. So we had
Oh.
to feed him. We had to do everything for him. I helped take care of him. So did my daughter. She did it most of the time with the fiance, and I would
Hmm.
come up sometimes and take care of him. Like his fiance had her daughter had a baby, so she wanted to go away for
Sure.
a week. So there's times that I spent just with Bruce, and
Mm.
we didn't have he didn't talk about it a lot. We didn't have a lot of conversations, but I remember on our anniversary, what I told him, this was on December 6th, and he died on the 11th.
Mm.
And I said, I've never said this publicly, but I said, last night would have been our 29th wedding anniversary, I think it was.
Hmm.
And he just looked at me, and he turned his head away from me, and he shook his head, and he said, "I'm sorry."
Hmm.
So that was
Let me
closure.
ask you. I was just gonna say, like, that had to be great, right? Like, as for I mean, obviously not the
Yeah,
death and the pain and all that, but to get that closure, to get
yeah,
that sort of recognition of admission of, hey, you. I don't know if you've talked to more people about that, but that is so rare. Like, I'm talking to people all the time, and I'm telling them you have to let go and forgive in spite of who the other person is, in spite of what they've done for yourself. And I think
yeah,
it's such a great thing. It was like that is a gift, that is a blessing that you were able to get that
yeah,
get that from him. And I also wonder if that's if you gave him what he deserved, if he gets sick and you're like,
yeah.
hey, screw you, buddy, screw you,
Right.
there's no way I'm helping you, you would have never gotten that. And I got to tell you, this I don't mean to take up all your time, but this
Yeah,
is my idea about life is to lead it with love. And in every situation where you can, the idea is to give that person the best thing that you can give them without getting something back in return or wanting something back in
yeah,
return. And what you just described to me inspires my faith so much
yeah,
because basically it's the case that almost everyone listening is going to say, well, that guy's a jerk and he doesn't deserve anything, and I would have spit in his face. And you did the
yeah.
exact opposite. You did the
Mhm.
most loving thing you can do, and you got a release from all of the badness and crap and the pain. And yeah, that is beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like this. I
I
want to
ha
thank you so much for that. That helps
yeah.
me.
Yeah, no, I did it, and, you know, was times when I was really pissed at him,
Yeah, yeah,
and even now I see his picture, and sometimes I'm really pissed, but more so I'm just really hurt, and I'm really sad, that, you know, my daughter had to see him in so much pain, and I'm really sad that he
Yeah.
couldn't talk about what he was going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
He really couldn't admit that he had cancer. He just couldn't deal with it. And um, what I do is I look at how he was raised and
Yep.
his
Yep.
childhood, and understand things he went through that caused him to be the way he is. And
Hmm.
so, I understand it. And he had a lot of anxiety. And back in the
Yeah.
90s, we didn't really have a term for anxiety.
Yeah.
I did try to get him to go get help and get like a pill, get counseling and stuff, but he didn't.
Nothing.
But
Yeah.
he was just a very anxious person.
Yeah.
And who helped me see that is my daughter, because she's 24, but she's anxious too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she could understand that about her dad, like when they go to Starbucks and just, for a normal person who's not anxious, just placing an order is intimidating, right? So,
Right.
you know, so Anna helped me see more that that's the way her dad was. And,
Yeah.
and I always told kids, and I knew too, he loved me, and he loved the kids, and he showed it in the way that he could,
Yeah. Because
so
people are sometimes limited by their understanding and their way of being and everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I got to tell you, I appreciate so much you going kind of on this deep dive with me into who Emily Harmon is, because uh, one of the main things that I think is important is to allow, like, kind of what you mentioned, tell these authentic stories so that now anybody who's looking can say, I'm not alone. I'm not
yeah,
by myself. I don't fear the judgment, because Emily, who's strong and tough and a naval officer and who's fought this adversity, she's vulnerable and she is
hmm,
strong and kicking butt after. And I think that is maybe one of the best gifts we can give to each other, is that authentic, real self. So I want to make sure that we take a moment, because you know the idea behind my podcast, it's how to win at everything. And in my mind, there's all of these different stories. I just want people to tell their story, especially people who feel like they're winning, people who I feel like are winning. And let me just tell you, from where I'm sitting, Emily, you are winning. You are winning big. Like that's I just the diff. I won't go too far into it, but I interviewed other people, and afterwards, I'm like, all right, well, got that done. I feel in my heart more connected with you,
yeah,
which
I do
tells
too.
me, yeah,
Hmm.
which tells me
Oh,
I know that other people will too. Yeah, yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and
So
that's the reason why I speak up. Is because, like,
yeah,
I used to speak up about the drug epidemic when I was in the Navy, because
hmm,
I was at a. Do you have time for another
yeah,
story?
yeah, yeah. Please,
Here I am, a new senior executive. I'm the equivalent of a two-star admiral or a
yeah.
two-star general. And I'm going to a class for new admirals and generals and senior executives in the Marine Corps and the Navy. And the day before the class starts, I get a call from my son.
Mm,
And he says, I was at Macy's shopping, and he said, Mom, and he always hesitates. I'm like, yes. And every
hmm.
time he called, I was like, he was 23. I was like, I knew it was not good when he called.
Yeah.
And he was too drunk on cocaine, alcohol, whatever, to even both
Mm,
everything to even talk to me. So he had a girl there, and we talk about it in my podcast episode. But she took him to the hospital, and I had tried to rescue my son 1,000,001 times. So
yeah, yeah,
I was an hour and a half away, and I did not go down and see him in the hospital.
yeah.
I went to my class, but I did speak up during the class, and I said, "Look, this is what's going on with my son."
Yep.
And there's
Yep.
200 people there, and I said, "This is what's going on with my son." And I said, "We are all leaders in the Navy, and I guarantee you, back at your command, there's somebody going through the same thing, and
Yep.
they're afraid to bring it up because they're afraid it's going to impact their security
Yep.
clearance, or they're
Yep.
afraid, they're ashamed." I said,
Yep.
"If somebody has cancer, people bring meals. If somebody has mental illness or is addicted to drugs, it's shameful.
Hmm.
You feel like you should
Hmm.
be shamed and everything." So then after that, I got asked to go speak at a couple of commands, and I
Wow.
was at one command
Wow.
talking about it. And the admiral's sitting there, and I told we were in the auditorium, and I talked about it. And one woman stood up at the end and said, "I'm raising my granddaughter because my daughter's an addict."
Oh,
The next guy said, my son overdosed twice last week and I don't know what to do.
wow.
So what I'm saying is talk about it. The leaders have to talk about it.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
and you'll hear if someone listens to my podcast episode, my son's blood alcohol was 0.39. He should have been dead.
Yeah,
He was alive.
wow.
And in the hospital 4 days, detoxed, went to rehab. Now he's studying electrical engineering. He's in community college and going to study electrical engineering, but he's doing so much better. But I'm fortunate that he is doing better, but he had to do the work. And that's, I guess my point is that I can't remember, but we were talking about how important it is to speak out. Look at Emily, I know that when I was younger and I looked up to all these admirals and senior executives, and I thought, well, they're perfect. They got it all together.
Right.
A lot of them act like they're perfect and they have it all together, but they're not. And you've got to show that you're not. I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's a strength.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Um, I want to make sure we save at least a little bit of time because it's time to wrap up. But there, um, as much as I enjoy you, I have to give you to the rest of the world. So let's make sure that we get a chance to kind of tell people where they can reach you. Now, when I send this out, I'm obviously going to list all your contact info. But for anybody who's just listening or watching, what's the best ways to reach you and best platforms to reach you?
Okay. So if you just go to emilyharman.com, and my last name is spelled Harman, you'll find there links to the Onward podcast. You'll find information on the Onward movement and things like that. I'm also on LinkedIn. Anyone can connect with me on LinkedIn. And you can find the Onward podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm probably more active on Facebook than all those others in the Onward Movement group. It's a private group, so people have to ask to join. Yeah.
All right. Emily, thank you so much for your time. Obviously you're a guest and you can come in anytime. So if you ever just want to go ahead and chat it up, you always have my personal information. Always amazing to talk to you. Anything else, actually, before we go, anything else you can leave our guests with? Any last message you want to let them know? Yeah, put you on the spot.
I know you put me on the spot. Just do the work to really understand yourself, because it pays off. It really does. It can be scary, but it pays off.
All right, guys, you heard it directly from Emily Harman, our successful person, and she's gonna be here at some point again. I promise you guys. Thank you so much again for your time, Emily, and you have a great day. Okay.
Thank you, Kelly, and I look forward to interviewing you on my podcast next
Definitely.
week.
Me too.
I'm going to ask you tough questions. Just kidding.
Right.
All right, so that was pretty awesome. Looking at it again, like I feel like I'm getting all teary, and that was a lot of fun. Um, so kind of looking back at it, that was what, a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago at this point. Um, how do you feel now? I mean, I know that the onward movement is already about being your authentic self and having those kind of conversations. How do you feel now, having kind of gotten some of that stuff out there?
I feel good. It's really interesting to watch
Yeah.
myself say that, and I started to cry again because
Yeah.
there's clearly a lot of painful times in my life that I still need to deal with,
Yeah.
because I think that I didn't really deal with them. I just kept busy as a way to
Yeah.
not have to deal with them. And I've been doing a lot more reading since we talked on what it means to live an authentic life, and listening
Hmm.
to podcasts and stuff like that. And I think that, what you've got to do is just always be in touch with yourself and making sure that you're living within your truths and the way you want to live, and not the way people say you should live.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of dealing with that now a little bit with my
Yeah.
kids. It took a while for both of my kids to decide to go to college.
Hmm.
Well, my daughter hasn't yet. She's 24. So some people might say, you should go to college. You need to go to college right away. You need to go to college to get a job. She didn't want to go to college. And I'm letting her, not that I'm letting her, but I'm encouraging her to
Sure.
be her authentic self, follow her path, not mine.
Is it I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but where are you seeing the what do you think is going to be the major benefit of her doing that, or of any of us doing that for that matter?
I can just see that, when she graduated from high school, she wasn't really ready to go to college, and
Yeah.
she's worked at several different jobs. So she's worked at a dog kennel. She's learned the value of work. I
Right.
remember once, I'll just say something. We went, I don't know if Anna's watching, but Anna, do you remember the time that you were working at the dog kennel and I was furloughed from the government because Congress couldn't pass a budget?
Yeah.
And so you said, let's go eat crabs. So we went to go eat a lot crabs, Chesapeake Bay crabs. And she said, I'm going to pay. Well, when the bill came, she's like, because it was, over $100 probably. And she's like, and I said, see, how many hours did you have to work in order to make the money to pay for these crabs? I ended up paying
Yeah.
for them. But my point is that, so she's learned
Yeah.
the value of money more, and she's worked at Starbucks, which is a coffee shop that has a lot of procedures in place. Then she worked at a startup juice shop. So she learned what it's like to, in a startup, there's no procedures in place, where's the rules on this and that? And she had to kind of write them. And then she worked at a restaurant. She's worked at Old Navy. She's worked food at a bar. So she's had so many experiences. And I can tell by the words she says and how she talks that, if she eventually goes and studies business, think about how much she'll have experience-wise to apply to what she's learning in college. It means so much more to her.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I always think that it's the authenticity part. I think you're spot on because I think there's so much of it that we kind of get into this sort of normalization and it's sort of a simulation mode where we're just kind of following whatever people have told us. So I think it is important for us to get out and actually have these kind of conversations. We talked about it during the interview where you kind of went into some of the information with your son or your ex-husband and that sort of thing. And you got a chance to really like open up. And you can see by a lot of the comments, people are feeling it. People are with you. And it's if you think about the fact that there's probably a lot more of there's probably a lot of people who understand a lot more about what you're talking about than will just openly say. To me, that being authentic is such a courageous act
Yeah.
that it liberates you, but it also helps other people to liberate themselves. So
Yeah,
I
and I
can
don't think I had
100%
the best
appreciate what
answer
you're doing,
to
Emily.
what it's like to be successful, but to me, being successful isn't money. It's helping other people. It's leaving a legacy
Yeah,
of, just all the people that you've
yeah,
touched. That's
impact.
success, and enjoying the journey while you're
Yeah,
going. And then that's something I'm really working on because I'm used to just like, let me hurry up and finish that so I can check it off my list, check it off. Check it off. And now I'm really
that's
looking,
right.
I've
That's
met so
right.
many people that are helping me with that. And I don't know if Jerry is on the line, but Jerry's a friend
Yeah,
of mine down here in Stanton Stowers. She's really helped me. Just
yeah,
people that have helped me just remember to enjoy the journey.
definitely, definitely. Well, I want to thank you again, Emily. We had such a good time. I can't wait until
Yeah,
you're showing my
I'll
interview
get it
because you probably
out.
interview so much better
We
than me.
like discussions with you.
So I
I really enjoyed my
I'm sorry, what you
discussions with
say?
you, both of them. When I was interviewing you and then this one.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes if you're trying to do the right stuff, it becomes easier to just start talking. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and put this over on LinkedIn. We're going to put some links together so people can watch the replay of this. Obviously, all of your information, your contact info will be in there. So, guys, I would say you guys see how awesome Emily is. For coaching, you heard some of the things that she's done. She's obviously marvelous at several different things. So, guys, definitely get in contact with her. You want to follow her on Facebook, definitely on LinkedIn, and you befriend this woman if you get
Yeah.
a chance to.
Join the onward movement. If you, and I
Yes.
know, some people may be like, well, I'm not on Facebook. It's kind of but you can go on Facebook now and just go into groups. I mean, you don't have
Yeah.
to go look at your page. You can just
Yeah.
log in and then just go to the group. There's a lot of reasons why I chose Facebook for the onward movement group, but
Yeah.
that's where it is. You could also sign up for my email list and get
Yep.
information there. But we're doing so many fun things. Can I just share a couple things about
Please.
the Onward
Yes.
Movement? So
Yes.
if you just go to Facebook and searching groups on Onward Movement, it's a
Hmm.
private group and you have to request to join. But we're doing a lot of fun things. For example, we're studying. I mean, I have some speakers coming on that share a tip every Thursday, and I've got someone coming on to share about writing and how journaling or even writing your story
Nice.
can help your health.
Hmm.
And Ginger's also going to give a 1 hour session on coming up on a Saturday about writing and the importance of that. And then I've got another guy, Sky Nelson Isaacs, and he's talking about, this is coming up in a couple weeks, because he's talking about synchronicities in your life, these coincidences, like kind of how your thoughts and your actions can manifest stuff happening in your life. And he's
That's
a
right.
physicist and he explains it in a way
Oh,
that I can
wow.
understand. And I've interviewed him once on my podcast, and another episode with him is going to publish this Wednesday, where he just talks about it. And he's got, you probably have things that you can remember in your life where you're like, that's weird, that's a coincidence.
Hmm.
Is it really a coincidence? It's a synchronicity. And maybe because you put something out in the universe or in the world about what you wanted to
That's
happen, or your
interesting.
decisions that you made, how that makes things happen in your life. It's so
Mm.
cool. So just those
And
are some fun things we're doing in the Onward Movement.
well, first off, that sounds awesome. Guys, she's right. I'm not a Facebooker. Just wasn't my place. However, I did just hop on and I joined the Onward Movement group. And Emily, you also have the podcast, right?
Yes, the Onward podcast, which I post those episodes usually on LinkedIn. Most of them on LinkedIn, not all. I post them on Instagram, and then I post them in
Hmm.
on Facebook. So, yeah, the episode today that published, this woman was homeless. She's in her 20s, homeless,
Wow.
went to 25 rehabs before she got
Wow.
sober. It's an amazing story. If you
Talk
have
about
someone in
endurance.
your life that's not sober, just
Yeah.
don't give up on them. Took her 20. I mean, the thing is that she was homeless and doing drugs for 8 years. And
Yeah.
our insurance companies expect you to go to a 30-day rehab and just be
And
fixed.
finish. Yeah. Yeah. Like those problems don't start. It like though you don't get those habits in 30 days. So, you
No.
know, and that is interesting. So I'm definitely going to be tuning in, Emily. And any last nuggets, any last things you want to let us know about or finish off with?
That's all. Just enjoy the journey. And if you're having trouble slowing down and doing that, like I did, contact me and I can tell you how it's
Yep.
helping me, what
Yep.
I'm doing. Mm-hmm.
So, guys, I want to thank everyone who's been viewing, everyone who's commented. You guys can definitely follow Emily. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm Kelly Blackman. You'll be you shouldn't have a hard time finding me. I'm your your favorite coach's favorite coach. So once you guys hop on LinkedIn or either on Facebook, definitely friend me. I'll be happy to connect. Emily, thanks again for your time, sister, and we will be back in touch. I'm so sure about it.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, thanks
Bye,
so much.
everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks for
all right.
watching.
Yep, you guys have a great evening.